parents?
So for me, my parents got a divorce when I was, God, how old was I? I was in the single, I might have been like 8, around that age. I don't remember the exact age. I was young. And so I remember we used to live on Post, and then we moved off Post. My dad retired from the military, and so we moved the city that was like right outside of the Army installation. And so we were staying in this house, and then it was in that moment that I realized that things were different. Like my dad wasn't really around as much, and he was still living at the house, but then all of a sudden he wasn't living there anymore. And then he would say that he was coming to visit, and I remember sitting and waiting in the living room looking out the window, and he would never show up. And then my mom would finally come and be like, well, your dad's not coming. She would come up with some excuse essentially as to why he didn't show up. So my dad just never really was there, because some of the memories are fuzzy. So he would kind of come and go. It was never consistent. And then I remember high school, between middle school and high school, there was like this gap where I just really didn't see him. And then out of the blue, he called up. And my dad has an issue with like creating stories. And so he called up, and my mom was one of those mothers that was like, I'm never going to keep you from your kids. If you want to see your kids, you come see your kids. Yeah. She was never like that. And so he would call, she'd be like, okay. And she would always ask, like, do you want to speak to your father? And I'd be like, and if I would say no, she'd be like, well, maybe you should just listen to what he has to say. Yeah. And so it was one of those things where I was like, no. And she was like, well, maybe you should just listen to what he has to say. And so I was like, okay, whatever, like, fine, give me the phone. And he goes into this story about how he had been like on this secret mission, been called back on special assignment, and that's why he had been gone for all this time. And I was just like, really? Do you really think I'm stupid? Like, I'm not that little girl that believes those stories. And I just hung up the phone. Didn't tell my mom anything. So he calls back, and my mom was like, she comes into my room and she's like, so what's going on? So that has always been my experiences with my dad. And then we made amends, and we started kind of like reconnecting by the time I went to college. And then probably 2 years in, I literally called him, as I normally did, called him. He worked at a group home, and he wasn't answering the home phone. And so I called downstairs because he worked at a group home and he lived upstairs. So I called downstairs and I spoke to the lady who knew me. And she was just kind of like, you could tell she was confused. And she was like, well, your dad doesn't live here anymore. And so she was like, you didn't know that? I was like, no, I had no idea. That was the last time I have talked to my father. Wow. The last time. The last time I heard his voice on the phone was when he called my mom. And I happened to pick up the phone, and I asked who it was, and he said, his name. And so my dad and my brother have the same, he's a junior, he's a senior. And so it's like, and the saddest thing is when I answered the phone, I knew exactly who it was. And so I gave my mom the phone, and they talked, and so she's talking to me. And then when she realized that he didn't even acknowledge or speak to me, she assumed that he had a conversation with me. Of course, she got really upset. Like really, really upset. But I've never have had a relationship with him. It's always been just never really expecting much from him because he just never was there. So of course that affects you, not having a father.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I used to be like really sad and just disappointed that this is what my life was like. But it wasn't until I got a little older and then I started looking around and realizing that I was living the reality that God makes sure that you have the people that you need in your life. Just because my birth father wasn't there, he made sure that I had father figures. Mm-hmm. So I look back and I realized I had really amazing father figures in my life that demonstrated that a man can show up and love you and follows through and does what he says and doesn't try to break your heart or is gentle and kind with your heart. So, but it's still a hard thing to process through that you have a father who seemingly doesn't want to have a relationship with you because he has a younger daughter. Mm-hmm. And he still has a relationship with her. We're friends on Facebook. Father's Day, she's always like, I love my father. And then she got married last year and he walked her down the aisle. So, there's all these things that it's just it's hard. I'm not going to lie. It's really, really hard to process through and to not feel some kind of way. But what I've realized is you have to acknowledge that you feel the way you do and to not allow it to keep you there. And so I have been able to forgive my father because I realized that he doesn't know how to be a father himself because his father wasn't there. Mm. So when you start to look at why your parents parent the way that they parent, 9 times out of 10, they're doing what they know. Yeah. And so you have to, for me, I had to get to a place where I could forgive my dad for myself. Yeah. A lot of times I know people have heard this all the time, like forgiveness is not for other people, it's for yourself. It is. Yes. Because I was carrying that weight around and just like not just mentally, but physically as well. And I just have come to terms with that like this past year with really truly like forgiving him. And I have like a sense of peace about like that's my father. I don't have a relationship with him. And I mean it is what it is, and it's okay because I have had those really, I would say 3 people in my life who have showed up and have filled that role, that father figure role. And I don't want to say it's sad, but by going through that, it made me realize that I needed to say thank you to them. Mm-hmm. And so this past Father's Day, I wrote letters and I sent letters to 2 of them. One of them, unfortunately, is no longer living. But I wrote them a letter and saying thank you. And, they both called and they were like, I never really thought about it in that way. They said that they just knew that that's what they needed to do. And, so that's how that has come full circle. And I will say this, like, I know I spoke on, like, I have a sense of peace. It still stings. Of course. It still stings. I don't want to sit here and say that it doesn't hurt or it doesn't make me feel some kind of way. Yeah. But I'm able to not allow it to not blame myself for it, essentially. Yeah. That's what it boils down to.
That's good, because like you said, you don't know why your parents parent the way they are, because they're individuals as well. A parent is not God. They're not going to do everything right. They
are imperfect people.
They are imperfect people, and they just do the best they can with what they've been given. And it's just a cycle that happens over and over again because, you can only be the best version of yourself with the information you've been given. and they're just doing what they know is best. It doesn't make it right, because now you have another generation of the population that needs to, now it's going to carry that on into their family, and then it's going to bleed onto their kids. So
right.
So when do you think the first time you, like, have you, I guess you didn't really mention, you mentioned abandonment but not really the word, what was, if you could pick one thing that really stood out as far as abandonment?
For me, it's like, I always remember waiting for my dad and him never showing up. And then as a child, and then when he called, it hit home again too, because it's like, oh my God, like, really? Like, you're justifying with a lie, you're disappearing on me, abandoning me, and you're feeding me this BS story, to justify that you left me. And then in college, when I called, like, that, I think that blew my mind for it took me like years to really get over that. It took me a long time to share, and I didn't tell my mom either. Because it was hard to say that. Like, I think that was probably the deepest cut from childhood and high school, was just, how do you just stop talking to someone? Like, never has reached out, tried to contact me. Like, he's seen my brother, like, he can reach out to me through Facebook, through my mom. Like, none of that. Like, there's never been like this sense of, from what I can tell, that he wants to be a part of my life. So it goes back to realizing that I had to let it go, and it was affecting the type of men that I was attracting to. I look at my previous relationship that I was in, and that was just like, not healthy. But essentially, he was a very similar man in that he didn't have the tools to provide me with a sense of showing up for me. And once I kind of recognized that by doing my self-work and realizing like I need to do better. Like, I'm not happy. Like, I don't like this person that I am. And I started like really doing some reflection on myself. It identified that I was in a very toxic relationship, and he had a lot of similar traits to my father. So yeah, that's how it has shown up in those ways. Just essentially just not being there. And then looking at how he has another child, another daughter, half sister, and he's showing up for her. So that like highlights like it's hard for you not to look at that and be like, well, why am I not good enough for you to want to have a relationship with? It's like you get a new child and it's like, okay, push you to the side. I'm going to focus all my time and attention on that. And I will share something with you. So me and my brother, growing up, my brother thought that my dad favored me, and he did, in that he would spend more time with me. But the thing that my brother never realized is, yes, he would go places with me, but he was taking me with him as a cover. My god sister's mom, she would always tell a story about how cute I was and how my dad would bring her over and I would sit on her lap and she's like, you're just so cute. So I say that to say that from my brother's perspective, like, I was getting the attention that he never got, and I really wasn't getting any attention. Like, it wasn't healthy attention. So that's why I think it's important to share and have those conversations with your siblings and your parents. As adults, it kind of helps you to get clarification in terms of like what was going on during that time in your life, because you just don't know.
That's wow. Just the attention the false, the pretending that I got from just now, the pretending that I'm really spending time with her to gain something for myself, and ultimately being selfish all the way around at any given moment, maybe not knowing that he was doing it, but used to doing it, and say, hey, I did hang out with you, so what else do you want? So, again, it doesn't make it right, but these are some things that we need to pay more attention to, because I personally get tired of hearing people say, just let it go, because they feel like that's the best advice to give you, and sometimes it is. But sometimes it's easier said than done, only because it took so many other events to lead to the big problem. It took several events to lead to the abandonment title. It took several events to lead to the bullying title. It's not always that easy to just say, okay, I'm going to let this go, but it was so many other things. I got to let go of everything else in the process to get to the bigger overall sense of peace that comes with that. So I thank you for being so open. My audience thanks you as well, because this is really going to help someone. So last part of the segment today is, how do you continue to live daily? What are you doing now to continue to
for
live?
Me, I have come to realize, like, my purpose is to help encourage other people to feel better about themselves, and to learn how to be more kind, and to work on that self-love, because it starts with you. If you're in such a dark place, no, you're not going to be able to accomplish any goals or dreams, because you're in that dark place. You have to reconnect to the light within you. And it starts with realizing and being honest with your shortcomings, the things that you don't like about yourself. It's a hard conversation to have when you look at yourself and you realize that when you're hurt, you hurt other people. So I have been hurt, and I have hurt other people. I have said things because I was in pain, and it just got to the point where I realized that I can't keep going down this path and feeling okay with the things I've done that day. When I would lay my head down, like, you have to atone for the actions that you do from day to day. And I genuinely care about other people at my core. So that was something that I struggled with. So I think because I was still connected in that, I realized that I was like, no, you're not right. You need to work on yourself. So every day I fight like hell to live my life, and I make sure that it comes from a place of love. And for me, if it genuinely comes from a place of love, I feel good about it. And that's in all areas of my life. It's like relationships. It's with the type of food that I eat. Is it lovingly prepared? How is it processed? How I talk to myself, how I allow myself to move in the world. Like, it has to come from that place of love. And I find for me that now that I live like that, authentically like that, I'm at peace, I'm happy, and I just feel more purposeful, more connected to my light, and I'm able to help and encourage other people to love themselves. Yay.
Love it. So, complete, as we go out, I'm going to give you a sentence. Just complete the sentence and give the audience something to take away today. And I also want you to start the discussion in the comment section about this particular sentence. So the sentence to close out this segment is, I continue to live by
holding myself accountable for showing up as a better person the day before.
And you heard it. This is how we're going to close out this segment. Again, I want you to go into the comment section and tell me and Nicole how you continue to live today. And make sure you like the video if you got anything out of the video. And please subscribe and hit the notification button. We will see you again on another segment of Living as a Cal. Bye. Nicole, say bye. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time.